When Jake came into my office the first time, he started telling me about how much his father is on his back. He is so annoying when it comes to just being productive, getting things done. And as a young adult, Jake just couldn't take it. He was so frustrated. He was very grateful that his dad decided that he would be able to work with somebody like myself. But we have to try to figure out what is going on here, because we had a massive breakthrough, and I want to share with you what happened. And this isn't the first time I've had this breakthrough. And what we can start to understand about this is how we can start to deal with people who might be a little bit difficult for us, but recognizing, you know what, there might be a different perspective out there. And when I started working with Jake, we started talking about all the different things that were going on. And what was interesting is that he really loved his dad. He really trusted his dad. However, his dad was just really tough on him. And it wasn't one of those toughness that he was like so on top of him that he wasn't able to breathe, but it was just like a lot of guilt feelings there. It was a lot of just these comments that were like behind the scenes and under the napkin that were just so frustrating, and Jake couldn't take it anymore. And one time I called him out on it. I'm like, Jake, what do you think about all the comments your dad makes? And we started talking about all the different ideas that were really coming up from this. And what was interesting is that he came up with such a beautiful way, so beautiful that I honestly started tearing on the call. And I started to talk about how lucky he is. Because when I first started asking him, why do you think your dad actually says these things to you? He started telling me because he doesn't want to fail as a parent, and he wants to make sure that I'm doing what I have to do so he can look good. And I challenged him on that. I'm like, do you really think your dad thinks that he cares so much about him and his title as a parent, that that's why he wants to be able to say certain things to you? And he's like, no, definitely not. That's not my dad's style, and that's probably not what he wants. And I asked him, like, so why do you really think that your dad is being so on top of you in terms of what it is you can and should be doing? And he started to talk about how his dad believed in him so much. His dad had so much high praise about his son that he wanted his son to see it as well. It was so frustrating for his dad because his dad knew his son's potential and really wanted to bring it out. So when he sees his son sleeping in, when he sees his son not being productive, it was really, really tough. And what was interesting about this conversation is that Jake finally started to understand why his dad was doing what he was doing. And what was interesting is I asked Jake, I'm like, well, do you think your potential is that high? Do you think you could be doing so much? And Jake was like, yeah, probably. I probably can be. And what was so interesting is that Jake finally started to understand where his dad was coming from. And I think if we can start to understand where people are coming from when they act towards us, then we have to start to really believe what's happening, and it's going to take away the energy. Because now when Jake's dad starts reprimanding him, it's not about just getting up in the morning, it's about something deeper. There's a deeper connection there that Jake can now connect it with, and therefore he has the ability to start to see his dad in that light. And it's not about Jake's dad beating him up, it's about really stepping into Jake's potential. And that's why the first thing we need to understand is that we can't always be so judgmental on the people who are sort of reacting towards us. They are doing certain things to us because there's probably another perspective. There's probably something that they believe. And what's interesting is that even when you have the most radical people who are hating and all this stuff that they're saying to you, it's because they have a belief. You might disagree with their belief, however, they have a certain belief. So what we have to start to understand is what is really going on here. Why are these people saying these things to me? And just get curious about the idea, about what it is they're doing and why it is they're doing it. Doesn't mean we have to agree with it. Doesn't mean we have to stay in the line of fire. However, just understanding them can be a really good way to get clarity in terms of it, so you don't get so emotional and so beat up. Because one of the biggest things that I see people go through, one of the things that I go through, is that when somebody says something negative to me, I take it so personally. And if you can start to say, hey, no, it's not about me, it's more about them and their issues and their things that they're going on, then all of a sudden we have that ability. And that was another person I worked with, Sarah. So you see, Sarah's mom was so on top of her. And instead of coming from a place of where Sarah's mom believed in her, Sarah's mom was being judged by her friends. She knew her mom was insecure, and because of that, her mom would make so many comments about how she dressed, how she would go out, and how she would speak to people. And what was interesting is that it was a different perspective. It was a more negative light, but she started to understand her mom a little bit more. She started to say, you know what, I feel a little bit bad for my mom, that she feels so pressured by her friends that that's why she has to do X, Y, and Z. And that was something that I think was so powerful for her as well. So as long as we're finding out why it is they're doing, even if we don't agree with it, we start to understand a little bit more. We don't get so emotional about it, because that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to be able to protect ourselves during these situations. The second thing we need to start to do is we need to start to give people a shot. So one of the things I pushed Jake on is I told Jake, I'm like, I want you to speak to your dad about the fact that you know why it is that he's pushing you. And for a lot of people, that would be very uncomfortable. We wouldn't want to be able to bring that up, because at the end of the day, like, they're doing it, so like it's not on us. However, if you can start to talk to these people and be transparent with them, that could really look to change everything. Because all of a sudden, the next time Jake's dad starts to say something to him, he's not going to make the comment, because he understands, Jake understands where he's coming from. So that's why we have to understand that when we are starting to work on these relationships, we want to be close to those people, try to be transparent, try to talk to them, try to tell them, hey, you know what, it's really annoying, but I understand where you're coming from. Because once you're able to do that, it's going to shift the whole dynamic, and then it's going to be so much less pressure, because Jake's dad's trying to get this message across, and Jake's saying, I understand where you're coming from, I'm working on it, I'm going to get better, and I'm going to be able to do the things that I want to be doing. And the third and final thing that I want you to start to think about is that you have to know when to say goodbye. And this is something where we need to start to understand, when it comes to ourselves, how is it we're going to be able to protect ourselves? For so many people, they want to keep giving opportunities, they want to keep giving chances. However, at a certain time, we have to say, you know what, my life is more important. And this is what happens a lot when it comes to your friends circle. You see, when we grow up, we have a certain group of friends, and we stay with those group of friends, and even if we're not with them all the time, we're still connected with them in a certain way. But what ends up happening is that we and our friends go very different ways. And what we have to start to understand is that if those friends aren't going to be helping support you, then we have to recognize that, you know what, it might be we have to go a different direction. And that is something that is so unfortunate, but at the same time, we have to do what's best for us. And I think if we could really start to think, hey, what are those relationships we want? What are the relationships that are being toxic and negative for us? Then all of a sudden we have that ability and understanding about what it is we need to be doing. It would be an ideal that we could work with everybody, but guess what? People are difficult, and there are certain personalities that are not going to be helpful for what it is that we want to be accomplishing. Recognizing this can be a massive game changer when it comes to your own personal growth and your own development, and making sure that you're on the right direction and being surrounded by the right people can make all the difference. So the next time somebody close to you starts to nag you, starts to really be annoying about certain things, try to figure out where they're coming from. What is it that they're doing? Why is it that they're doing and saying the things that they're saying? Is it for them? Is it for you? And just really get clarity and understand what's going on, because once we can start to understand, we have this ability to be able to not get affected as it. I mean, that's the biggest thing. We don't want to be so emotional about it. If we're not going to get emotional about it, then we have that ability to really step up and to be able to do the things and feel the way that we want to be feeling without getting affected by the other people. And if you're the type of person who gets overwhelmed because you're focused on too much, make sure to take a look at this next video where we talk about how you can achieve success without doing as much.